Welcome back into the College Chaos Podcast. Garrett Ross, Jack Mackenzie here with you, and we got a hot button topic here, Jack. And this is one that me and you.
Oh man,
you're calling me an elitist, and you kind of hurt my feelings. I don't know how I feel about this.
I think you deserve it because what did you say before this show?
So, all right, I'm on record multiple times throughout the course of the announcement of the new Big 12 of saying that that's a glorified American conference.
I can't believe
that is a glorified American conference when it comes to football. Now, you're not feeling me on this.
Heck no. Heck no.
So, look, dude, we saw what happened to Cincinnati last year. And that was a Cincinnati team who had Luke Fickell, who is a tremendous coach, and they couldn't get over the hump. Now, Fickell's gone, and we kind of talked on our first episode about Cincinnati. I'm not sold on them. I'm not sold on Satterfield or anything. Then TCU goes out and just gets, oh, my God, man. Like, you couldn't ask for a worse showing for a conference. Brett Yormark's out there trying to sell this thing, and he's giving it hope. But then you do that? Like, man, I was sitting there wondering, like, what the hell is going through Brett Yormark's head this entire time that this is unfolding?
I don't think, one, that the Cincy comp is very fair. The hump for them was getting into the playoff as what was then a group of 5 team, and they didn't even get blown out by Michigan that bad.
Okay, they didn't. But the thing with me is there's a major talent disparity across college athletics, and I think it's always been there. I'm not trying to say this is something brand new. College athletics has never been fair. There's never been parity in college athletics.
Nope.
But I think right now we're to a point, man, especially in the NIL era, where it's so much more difficult for programs like teams in the Big 12, like teams in the Pac-12. Hell, most of the teams in the Big 10. There's just a handful. I'm not saying the entire SEC is above everybody. I am saying that probably half of the SEC is above everybody. Is that
you're walking this back now?
No, okay.
It feels like you're walking it back.
I'm not walking it back.
Because when you said that the Big 12 is looking like an American conference, my next question has to be, so what conferences aren't American conferences? Is it the SEC and the Big 10? Is that it? And then when you dive deeper into that, the Big 10 West definitely is not at that level. Not the same as the SEC West, the Big 10 East. And right after that, I'd say probably the SEC East.
I think the SEC is head and shoulders above everybody. And I think the Big 10 tries to ride the coattails of mainly Ohio State. Okay, Michigan now somewhat to an extent. But I think they really ride the coattails of Ohio State and their success and look, a lot of the credit goes to Kevin Warren. I think the way he's come out and taken the ESPN Greg Sankey motto of we're going to promote this and push this as we're better than everybody, and you start getting people to believe it. The difference is the SEC is reaping the rewards of a decade plus of that where the Big Ten is just trying to start. And I think as the game goes on and we see it progress, because right now, Baylor won the Sugar Bowl last year, right? Great win for them. The Rose Bowl this year was kind of an afterthought. I know there was a lot of drama regarding its future and everything, but I think I feel
like the Rose Bowl tried to create that.
Well, of course it did. It's the Rose Bowl. They're arrogant. They think they're better than everybody, but they're not. You're about to get left behind, Rose Bowl.
Your point is?
My point is that I think you're seeing such a big difference to where you're not going to be able to catch up. And I think if you're going to, look, TCU, you have one playoff win, right? Mm-hmm. It was great. Right now, there's a lot of teams out here looking at these bowl games like the Sugar Bowl, like the Rose Bowl, and whereas even 2 or 3 years ago, winning that was a damn big deal. I mean, it was big. Now it's like, it's just Sugar Bowl. Who cares? Nobody cares. As this goes on and the playoffs expand, I think it's going to get to a point, I'm afraid it's going to get to a point, where within the next 5 to 7 year window, you're going to see teams like TCU, your Pac-12, Oregon State. I think you're going to get in there. Hear me out. I think you're going to get in there. You're going to win. Cool. You win a game. Great. You won a game. And then you're going to get smoked. And then I think after about 5 to 7 years, we're going to start seeing where the teams who win these playoff games are looking at them as we're looking at the Sugar Bowl now where, oh, cool, you won a playoff game. That's cute. That's cute.
I think that's assuming blowouts. After they win and they go face the bigger, better SEC team or the Ohio State, that's assuming blowouts. Once they start making it competitive, the fact that they get to play that next game, they win the whatever bowl, the earlier playoff game, and then they go, and if they can be competitive, I'm not saying that they will, but if they can be competitive, all of a sudden you have a direct yardstick, a direct measurement of we are getting this close. You are giving people every reason to think in the future you can come here and compete. You can have that hope, you can have that belief, you can have that dream of bringing this program up to that level. Without that direct measuring stick, moving to the playoff is good for parity. Expanding the playoff. Because then you have the opportunity to show you can compete. Will they actually take that opportunity? I'm scared. I'm nervous. I can't fully disagree with you on that they can't, they very well, the SEC and the Big Ten might very well be able to pull away. But with the playoff expanding, it gives everyone a measuring stick and the opportunity to show we can be on that level. We can get there. We are this close. We are this many points away. TCU did negative favors for the Big 12 in that way. But who do they have to beat to get there? Michigan, the winner of the Big Ten this year, and over the last however many years, probably the second best program in the Big Ten compared to Ohio State.
Yeah,
I know Michigan fans won't like me saying that after the last two victories they have over them, but
you've been Ohio State's little brother.
So second best Big Ten program, so second best program, the second best conference, and you lose to TCU.
That's
TCU's
fair.
showing that the Big 12 at the top end can compete with the Big 10 at the top end. So maybe the SEC is the one that can pull away.
They are.
But you see what I'm saying? All of a sudden, it goes from, well, these two conferences are elite to this one conference is elite. One conference is not going to pull away on its own. The SEC champion is not.
No, it's not. No,
for all intents and purposes, it's
basically
basically the national championship. They have to go and still win that.
No,
They
I mean, the
have to
national
play with the
championship
other
game this
teams.
year was Ohio State and Georgia, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, after the fact.
But, okay, so looking at this right here, all right, TCU, obviously, you're going to come back, and you're going to be pretty loaded, and I think they benefit more. All right, Texas OU are gone. I think TCU and potentially Houston have the best chances of benefiting from their location because you have so much talent in the Metroplex. You have so much talent in Houston, and these guys are going out, and if you get lost on a roster at a Georgia or you get lost and you want to come back home, Tommy Brockermeyer, JoJo Earl, the Alabama guys that are coming back to the Metroplex to play at TCU. I think that gives them hope. It gives them a better chance of competing than the rest of this.
TCU's in a better spot than Houston.
Oh, yeah, right now they
Because you
are.
fail out of a
Houston's got
Georgia,
culture issue.
and you fail out of a Georgia, and you're from Houston, you're going to A&M or Texas, and you're staying in the best conference in the land.
You are, but okay. So right now, how long do you think it would take for okay? We saw what happened to TCU, and there's a major, significant gap there. How long is it going to take for TCU to build up recruiting classes? And I think, look, the portal's going to help. I think USC is a prime example of how quick you can kind of turn things around. But to what extent? I don't think you can't match the depth that what Georgia's recruiting. How long is it really going to take for one of these teams to win a national championship? I don't see a team in the Big 12 legitimately having a chance to win the national championship in a decade. I don't.
Do you see a team outside of the SEC winning in the next decade?
Ohio State. I think Ohio State can do it. I think USC possibly if you figure out your deep and look,
They're not going to figger it out.
Alex
Lincoln Riley.
Grinch, look, Trojan
I
fans,
honestly think
that
Lincoln
dude's gotta
Riley.
go.
I think Lincoln Riley will lose a job before he hires a good D coordinator.
And if that's an ego issue,
Honestly, my point being, so there is one conference and one team outside that conference that you actually have faith will win a national championship in the next 10 years. One single team outside that conference.
yeah, I mean,
So then it's not an issue for the Big 12. It's an issue for everyone that's not the SEC.
Okay, so then at some point,
And the SEC alone cannot break away. They have to have at least the Big 10 with them. In that case, they'd have to carry the Big 10.
is there a team right now in the Big Ten that you think can kind of step up and help add to their persona, what they're wanting to do? Outside of right
It
now,
has to be
consistently.
Wisconsin or Penn State.
But that's their only hope, right? So I mean,
Maybe
look,
Michigan State, but
Michigan's no. That's a
they've been in the
basketball school
playoff.
through and through.
They've been in the playoff. That's more than a lot of schools can say.
Look, man, I don't know. I just feel like, and look, I'm not trying to slight the Big 12 when I say this. I just think that, and it still goes back to my 5 to 7 window theory or period. I think that it's going to get to a point maybe where you need to start looking at separating, kind of like you have right now with the FCS, FBS, Group of Five. I know that pisses a lot of people off when you say Group of Five, but at some point to make it fun. Because that national championship, there was nothing fun about that national championship unless you're a Georgia fan. And I'm pretty sure some Georgia fans were like, dude, this is boring as hell.
I just don't think we need to overreact to the
But it's
worst
not 1
blowout
year.
ever.
It's not 1 year.
It's not 1 year, but is every year a blowout?
No, but every year is pretty much the same thing. Go back to, all right, pull it up, 2006. How many teams outside of the SEC have won a national championship since 2006?
It was 4 teams.
4 teams. Where's the parity? There is none. Like you can't. I feel like you're going to have to get to a point where you separate it, and I think it would be good for the game as a whole.
Really want to make one point here.
Okay.
Is parity who wins in the end, or is parity how good the game is?
Parity's how good the game is. Money wins in the end.
Yeah, so it's money that's driving it, not parity or lack of parity.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. Is go along with the parity, and then throw the money, throw the NIL, throw the elitist recruiting from certain schools, a certain handful of schools. All right, I'll draw this comparison. It's almost like, and a lot of people won't get this, but Texas high school football right now, it's such a big deal. When in my opinion, when they split it into divisions, I think they had greed for more money, but I think they were thinking it would help the game. And it's had the reverse effect. It's had a negative impact to a point where you got the same people winning in every classification year in and year out. And now you're having talks about creating another division, okay? Especially to help with 6A. I think right now, in the way things are going in the NIL, until something changes, where the NCAA finally grows a pair and steps in.
That's not happening.
I know it's not happening, but something. If we're going to keep going on this trajectory, you're going to have to get to a point where to keep people entertained, because a lot of this is driven by bets. A lot, and that's something I know some schools, some programs don't want to look at or don't want to consider, but it is what it is. And I think from the competitive standpoint and to keep people's interest, you need to maybe create a new division. And because look, but
you just said it yourself, creating a new division doesn't help.
But it will. It'll make it more fun. I think it'll draw more interest, because I think, look, at some point you're going to get bored with this, right? Like, you're a Big 12 guy.
Yeah.
Is it fun all the time?
Most of the time, yeah.
That's fair. I mean, I think some people don't see that.
You got to be happy with where you're at. And if the amount of money you make and the amount of championships, national championships you win are all you care about, you're just not going to be happy unless you're the SEC. You're just not. The Big Ten's not going to be happy until they're winning at least half the championships, unless they're splitting with the SEC. Because they're going to be on par with money at a certain point, or at least close. But they're not going to be happy because they're not winning the championships. They're going to be that, if it's 1A and 1B, well, we're 1B, and everyone knows it.
Right.
So you've got to set the goalposts right. And this is crazy, because when we originally talked about doing this segment, it was more of a how is the Big 12 going to shake out as the new members come in and the OU and Texas leave, and TCU, they came out of nowhere this year. Texas Tech had a good year. After last year, people were saying Baylor and Oklahoma State were probably going to be the new kings of this conference, and then we had a segment last time about the troubles at Oklahoma State, and clearly Baylor was bad this year for their expectation level.
Yeah, they were. So okay,
but the point of where we went with it is just we have to ask these questions about how viable the Big 12 is as a league moving into the future, because of how bad that upset was. But I would just like to say, I still think it's a one-off. It was bad. Records happen. Records get set every year in some way or another. And I don't want to write it off, because a Big 12 team made the national championship game. One of these years, if they can keep every now and then getting a team into the semifinals, one of these years, I think it's going to finally happen. I think someone will finally win it for the Big 12.
I think
the same goes for other conferences.
Yes, I think you brought up a good point earlier. You need a team outside of the collective whole to win every 1 to 5 years to make it interesting?
Every 1 to 5 is pretty interesting, and we're probably closer to 1 out of every 10 right now, especially like SEC versus the rest, and even more so for SEC and Big Ten versus the rest. So, frankly, I should probably be rooting on Washington more and Oregon State more and Clemson more. Clemson, until they move to the SEC, which is probably more of a matter of when.
It's probably inevitable.
But until then, I should probably be rooting them on more. Florida State, I should be on the Florida State bandwagon this year.
I think a lot of people are about to get on that Florida State bandwagon. Let's look at the Big 12, though. So you got these new teams